hull is still there. You can see it. Sitting in a dry dock in Bristol, the iron ribs of the SS Great Britain rise above the waterline like the skeleton of something that refused to die. Rust the colour of dried blood runs in long streaks down the plates. Gulls land on the bow and lift off without looking back. This ship crossed the Atlantic 32 times. It carried gold rush miners to Australia, troops to the Crimea, and somewhere in its iron belly, the compressed terror of 10,000 emigrants who had never seen open ocean. It ran aground on the Irish coast. It lay abandoned in the Falkland Islands for decades, half submerged in black water, forgotten by everyone except the sheep grazing on the cliffs above it. A salvage barge dragged it home in 1970. And still, here it stands. Before any of that, on a cold March morning in 1850, a woman in a grey wool coat stood on a dock in Liverpool and looked at it for the first time. She had never seen anything so large in her life that was also made by human hands. How do you build something like this, then fill it with people who have nothing left to lose, then push it into the North Atlantic in winter and call it progress? You are about to find out. Step onto the dock. The tide is going out. The smell reaches you before anything else. Coal smoke, river mud, rendered tallow, the sharp salt edge of the Mersey at low tide. You pull your coat tighter. It is 6 in the morning and the sky is the colour of a pewter plate. Flat, cold, offering nothing. The dock at Prince's Pier is already moving. Carters with flat caps drive horses across wet cobblestones, iron wheels ringing against stone, as porters carry trunks on their shoulders, heads bent, breath rising in white clouds. A woman nurses an infant on a wooden crate, her back against a bollard, watching the crowd with eyes that have already seen too much of England. Around her, the dock fills. Men in heavy coats drag rope-handled boxes. Children run between adult legs, their bare feet on wet granite. A clerk, in a tall hat, stands beside a wooden table, ticking names off a ledger with a pencil worn down to a stub. His lips move as he counts, and then you see her, the SS. Great Britain sits at the deep water berth, 4 masts rising into the grey sky, a single black funnel amidships already breathing thin smoke. She is 98 metres long. Her hull is iron, not wood, the iron. And in the flat morning light, she looks less like a ship and more like a building that someone has pointed at the sea. A gang of dock workers moves beneath her bow, checking the mooring chains. Each chain link is the size of a man's forearm. The anchor is the size of a door. You stand there with your single trunk and your papers and the particular feeling in your chest that comes from burning every bridge behind you. This is the last morning you will spend on English soil for years, possibly forever. To understand why people are here, 370 passengers, most of them with everything they own in one box. You have to understand what England felt like in 1850 from the inside. Stand on any street corner in Liverpool or Manchester or the East End of London. A man in a top hat passes within a metre of a barefoot child. Neither one turns their head. That distance, 1 metre, 2 worlds, is not cruelty. It is the architecture of the age. It is simply how things are arranged. A cotton spinner at a Lancashire mill stands at his machine for 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, fingers moving faster than you can follow, the air so thick with fibre that the men cough blood by 40. He makes enough to eat, not enough to save, not enough to leave, not enough to imagine anything different, except that word has come. It has been coming for 2 years now, on pamphlets, in newspaper columns, whispered in pub corners. California, gold, New York, the crossing point between the old world and the new. Australia, where the land is so empty, a man can walk for 3 days without seeing another face. He's a shipping agent on Water Street in Liverpool, has a board in his window. Steerage passage to New York, £3.10. A skilled worker can earn that in 3 weeks if he spends nothing on anything. He will spend 3 weeks sleeping on sacks and eating cold porridge, and then he will walk through that door. The clerk at the wooden table stamps the paper. His face says nothing. He has done this 4,000 times. Walk the length of the ship from bow to stern, and you walk through every layer of Victorian England at once. At the stern, in the first-class saloon, a man named Edward Whitmore sits at a mahogany table bolted to the floor and eats soft-boiled eggs from a china cup. He is 34, a wool merchant from Leeds, traveling to New York to negotiate contracts. His coat is dark blue. His boots have been polished this morning by someone who is not him. He does not look out the porthole. He has seen ocean before. Below him, in the second-class cabins, a Methodist minister named Reverend Thomas Holt shares a narrow bunk room with a schoolteacher from Dublin and a printer from Glasgow. They eat at a common table, salt beef, biscuit, dried peas, and in the evenings they read aloud to each other by oil lamp, their voices just loud enough to hear over the engine. Further forward, down the ladder into the steerage hold, 300 people arrange themselves around wooden berths, stacked 3 high in rows. The ceiling is low enough that a tall man must duck. The light comes from 2 oil lanterns swinging on hooks. The smell is already starting. Unwashed bodies, damp wool, the sweetish undertone of the bilge below. A woman named Brigid Malone from County Clare sits on the edge of her berth and opens a cloth bundle on her lap. Inside, 2 hard-boiled eggs wrapped in paper, a small Bible with a broken spine, a lock of hair tied with a ribbon. She holds the ribbon for a moment. Then she wraps everything back up and pushes the bundle under the berth with her foot. A Chinese merchant named Chen Wei, traveling through New York toward the California goldfields, sits cross-legged on his berth in steerage and eats cold rice from a tin cup. The men around him speak Irish and Welsh and Yorkshire English. He speaks Cantonese and some Portuguese from Macau. They do not speak at all. They nod. That is enough for now. In the far bow, below the waterline, 4 boys from Birmingham, the oldest is 17, have found a corner behind a support column and are playing cards on a turned-over crate. The youngest has never been on a boat. He keeps one hand on the iron hull beside him, feeling the cold of the Mersey through the metal. The engine beats beneath all of them like a second heart. You have been at sea for 4 days. The North Atlantic in March does not care about your plans. The ship rolls, not gently, not like a rocking chair. It rolls with its whole iron weight, 20 degrees to port, 20 degrees to starboard, a pause at each extreme that your body interprets as the moment before falling. You grip the berth frame. You have gripped it so hard for so many hours that the skin between your fingers is raw. You are wearing the same clothes you boarded in. They are damp. They will be damp until New York. There is no way to dry anything in steerage. The ventilation shaft above the berth passes air, but the air is also wet, also cold, carrying the spray from the deck above. You have eaten twice today. Salt beef so hard you had to soak it in water before it would bend. A biscuit that left dust on your fingers. A ladle of something grey that might have been pea soup if the peas had not entirely surrendered to the water.
Your head down.
Your teeth have begun to ache. Not from anything in particular, just from the cold. Just from your jaw being clenched against the rolling. The man in the berth above you has been sick twice. He hangs his head over the edge, and you move your bundle further under the berth. At night, the lanterns are extinguished. In the dark, the ship sounds different. The engine a low, continuous thudding. The hull flexing and groaning. The water outside so close that you can hear it hissing against the iron plate 4 inches from your ear. You think about the field you left behind in Shropshire. The smell of turned earth after rain. The particular creak of the gate at the bottom of the lane. Then the ship rises on a wave, and everything slides 6 inches to the left, and you grip the frame again, and stop thinking about anything except staying still. Step back from your body, and look at the ship as a whole. From above, imagined, reconstructed, the SS. Great Britain moves through grey Atlantic swells, like a black iron needle threading through folded cloth. The 4 masts carry some sail in fair wind. The funnel pushes dark smoke that the wind tears away immediately. The wake behind her is white and straight, and then it curves and disappears. She was designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Not a ghost, not a name on a plaque. A man who stood on this deck in a stovepipe hat and a cigar in his mouth, watching the sea with an expression that people described as calculating and other people described as hunger. He designed a ship made of iron when every shipbuilder in England said iron sinks. He designed a screw propeller when every admiral said paddle wheels were the only answer. He was wrong about almost nothing structural and right about nearly everything that mattered. Watch the reconstruction now. The ink drawing of the original blueprints becomes a ship in the water. The cross-section diagram becomes a hold full of people. The compass rose on the old chart becomes the actual horizon. Below the waterline, the engine room is a cathedral of heat and noise. Meet two stokers stand before the open furnace doors, shoveling coal from a pile behind them. Their faces are orange in the firelight. Their shirts are soaked through. They work 4 hours on, 4 hours off, around the clock for the entire crossing. The coal pile diminishes. Another pile appears. The engine never stops. On the upper deck at night, one oil lamp burns at the stern and one at the bow. A first mate walks his watch in the dark, stopping at the rail to check the compass, checking the sky for stars. The stars are out tonight. Cold, clear, multiplied by the absence of any other light. The Atlantic in 1850 at midnight is the darkest place you have ever stood. A lookout in the bow watches the black water ahead and sees nothing except more black water and feels, despite everything, or perhaps because of everything, completely awake. But the SS Great Britain is the most technically advanced civilian vessel afloat in 1850. Understanding what that means requires watching it from the inside. Go down into the engine room. The condensing steam engine stands 3 decks high, pistons the diameter of rain barrels, connecting rods as thick as a man's thigh. The whole assembly vibrating with a low frequency you feel in your back teeth. 2 engineers in leather aprons move around it with oil cans and rags, wiping fittings, checking gauges, adjusting valves with careful quarter turns. They speak to each other by gesture. The engine is too loud for words. The screw shaft runs from the engine through the stern below the waterline. When Brunel's 6-bladed propeller design was fitted, the ship immediately outperformed every paddle wheel vessel on the Atlantic run. Watch the propeller turning through the dark water beneath the hull. 6 blades biting, the ship pulling forward with a steadiness that no paddle wheel could match in heavy weather. In the cargo hold, forward of the engine room, wooden crates are lashed in rows with hemp rope, bolts of Yorkshire wool, Sheffield cutlery in wooden boxes, a piano in a crate with straw packing, destined for a drawing room in New York, 2 crates of Staffordshire pottery that will not survive the crossing intact. On the main deck, the cook fires 2 iron ranges in a galley so small that 2 people cannot pass each other. He feeds 370 passengers and 40 crew 3 times a day for 14 days. He sleeps 4 hours at a stretch. His hands are burned in 6 places and he has learned to work around them. The purser sits at a small desk in a cupboard behind the first-class saloon, entering figures in a ledger by candlelight. He is accounting for the coal, the provisions, the water, the distance made good, the distance remaining. His figures are exact. The ship runs on his numbers as much as on Brunel's engine. Day 7. Find Brigid Malone. She is awake before the others. She rises from the berth in the dark, feet finding the wet planking, and moves toward the ladder that leads to the upper deck. The hatch is heavy. She pushes it with both hands, her arms straight, until it swings open, and the sky, still dark, still full of stars, opens above her. She climbs out and stands at the rail on the port side, hands wrapped around the iron bar. The cold is clean up here in a way it is not clean below. She breathes it in 3 times, slowly. And behind her, the funnel exhales dark smoke in a steady pulse. The screw turns somewhere beneath her feet, a vibration she has learned to read like a second heartbeat. Steady means safe, irregular means something to worry about. She came from a village outside Ennis in County Clare. The potato blight took the last of the crop in 1848. Her father died in the spring of 1849. Not from starvation exactly, from the thing that comes after starvation, when the body has used everything it had and runs out of reasons to continue. Her mother is still alive, staying with a cousin in Limerick. Brigid left £12 on the kitchen table before she closed the door. It was everything she had saved in 3 years of domestic service in Liverpool. She did not look back at the house. She has not looked back since. She is 26 years old. She has a cousin in Brooklyn who sends letters in cramped handwriting on thin paper, describing streets so wide you could fit 3 English streets inside one, buildings being raised on every corner, work available to anyone willing to stand in front of a door and knock. She has read these letters so many times the paper has split along the fold lines. She watches the horizon lighten, first a grey line, then pale blue, then the first orange edge of the sun pressing up from beneath the water. The Atlantic goes from black to dark green to the particular cold blue of March. She grips the rail tighter. Her fingers are red from the cold, but she does not go below. A deckhand passes her with a mop, nodding once without stopping. A first-class passenger in a heavy coat emerges from the companionway, takes one look at the sky, and goes back in. The cook's galley chimney begins to smoke, breakfast starting, the smell of burning fat and coal reaching the deck before anything is ready. Brigid stays at the rail until the sun is fully up. Then she goes below, wakes nobody, unwraps her cloth bundle, and eats the last of the hard-boiled eggs standing beside her berth in the dark. She rewraps the Bible and the ribbon. She slides the bundle back under the berth with her foot. She sits down and folds her hands in her lap and waits for whatever day 7 brings. But this was not even the hardest part.
It's dropping.
On the morning of day 9, the barometer drops. The first mate watches the instrument in the chart room, tapping the glass with one finger as if he doesn't trust the reading. The needle continues to fall. He goes to find the captain. By noon, the sky has changed. The flat grey of the crossing has become something else. A bruised yellow-green at the horizon, clouds building to the northwest in towers so high and dark they look solid. The wind begins in the rigging first, a low whistle that rises in pitch over 2 hours until the ropes are singing a continuous tone. The order comes, all passengers below, hatches secured. On the main deck, crew members move fast, lashing everything that can move, checking everything that is lashed. A barrel breaks free and rolls across the deck, and 2 men chase it and catch it at the rail. A boy is sent aloft to furl the topsail, and you watch his hands on the yard, white-knuckled, his body pressed against the canvas as the mast swings in long arcs against the sky. Below in steerage, the hatches close. The light drops to the 2 swinging lanterns, and the air thickens immediately. 300 bodies in a sealed space, breath and fear and the smell of wet wool. A child begins to cry. A man vomits into a bucket. Someone starts a prayer in Irish, low and continuous, and 2 other voices join it without looking up. Then the sea arrives. The first wave hits the bow with a sound like a cannon, not a slap, a blow, the kind of impact you feel in your sternum. The ship rises, tilts, falls. Everything not tied moves. A trunk slides from one side of the hold to the other with a grinding sound. The lanterns swing wildly, shadows lunging across the ceiling. A woman screams once, then stops, then grips the berth frame with both hands and does not let go. The storm lasts 11 hours. The engine keeps turning. Down in the engine room, the 2 stokers work in water. The sea has found its way through somewhere, and the floor is awash, water sloshing with every roll, the furnace doors opening to orange light and slamming shut. One stoker slips and catches himself on a condenser pipe and burns his palm straight through his glove. He wraps a rag around it and keeps shoveling. If the engine stops, the ship loses steerage. If the ship loses steerage, it turns sideways to the waves. He knows what happens after that. On the upper deck, the captain stands at the wheel with the helmsman, both of them leaning into the wind, spray driving horizontally across the deck. The captain holds a lantern in his left hand and watches the compass in its binnacle. He makes corrections in small increments, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, keeping the bow into the swells. His coat is soaked through. His face is without expression. He has been doing this for 20 years and does not plan to stop now. In steerage, Brigid Malone does not pray. She lies flat on her berth with her eyes open, listening to the ship. She has learned its sounds over 9 days. The normal creak and groan of the hull, working in ordinary swells, the particular beat of the engine at cruising speed. She listens past the screaming of the wind and the crashing of the waves and focuses on that engine. It is still turning. As long as it is turning, she will not let herself be afraid. The man in the berth above her is crying quietly. She reaches up and puts her hand on the edge of his berth, palm up, and after a moment, his hand comes down and grips hers. They do not speak. They hold on. At 4 in the morning, the motion changes. The wild corkscrewing eases, and the waves are still large but regular now. The lanterns swing less. The prayer in Irish slows and stops. The ship comes through. On the morning of day 14, a boy in steerage wakes before everyone else and climbs the ladder to the deck. He stands at the bow with his hands on the rail and looks west. The sky is pale and cold, the sun just rising behind the ship, pushing its light ahead. And there, low on the horizon, solidifying out of the morning haze, land. Dark, flat, unmistakable. The coast of New Jersey. Then the wider opening of the harbor. Then, as the ship turns north, the lower bay of New York spreading open like a cupped hand. Word travels below deck faster than any announcement. Bodies press up the ladders, spill onto the deck, crowd the rails on both sides. They are wearing everything they own. They have not washed in 2 weeks. Their faces are pale and creased from sleep and bad air, their eyes red at the rims, and every single one of them is looking west with the same expression. Not joy exactly, not relief. Something more careful than that. Something that does not yet believe what it is seeing. The harbor fills the view. A pilot boat comes alongside and a man in oilskins climbs the rope ladder with practiced ease and goes straight to the bridge. Steam ferries cross the bay in every direction, trailing smoke. A 3-masted clipper under full sail passes to the south, moving fast, its white sails bright against the pale sky. On the Manhattan shore, buildings rise above the waterline in a dense, jagged line. Construction cranes jut up from the skyline at intervals. The city is building itself in real time. The SS Great Britain moves up the harbor under half power, the engine slowing, the anchor chains ready at the bow. A customs officer comes aboard at the quarantine station on Staten Island. He moves through steerage with a lantern held up, looking at faces. He stamps papers at a folding table. He does not make eye contact. At the Castle Garden immigration station, at the southern tip of Manhattan, the gangplanks go down. 347 passengers, 23 fewer than boarded in Liverpool, lost to fever and 1 drowning during the storm, walk off the ship and onto American soil for the first time. Brigid Malone is near the middle of the line. She carries her trunk herself, both hands on the rope handles, the weight pulling at her shoulders. She steps off the gangplank and her foot finds the stone of the dock and she stops walking for a moment. Just a moment. Her eyes are dry. Her face is still. Then she picks up the trunk again and walks forward into the crowd.
I have my documents here.
Chen Wei moves through the immigration hall with his papers in hand, finds an interpreter, completes his registration in 20 minutes, and is on a ferry to the Brooklyn Docks within the hour. He will be in San Francisco in 6 weeks. Edward Whitmore is met at the first-class gangway by a business associate with a carriage. They shake hands. They ride uptown. The carriage wheels ring on the cobblestones of Broadway. He does not look out the window. The 4 boys from Birmingham stand together at the edge of the dock for a long time, looking at the city. The oldest one has an address written on a piece of paper. A cousin, a boarding house on Mulberry Street. He reads the address again. Then he folds the paper and puts it in his coat pocket, and they start walking. Where the World Trade Center stands today, these feet were walking. Where the glass towers of Lower Manhattan now throw their shadows across the harbor, there was once a dock smelling of rope and coal smoke and the particular saltwater smell of a harbor that has been working without pause for 200 years. The city opened. It swallowed them. It made them into something new and hard and useful, and it never once thanked them for it. That is how cities work. That is how this one became what it is. Go back to Bristol. Go back to the dry dock. Stand on the glass floor they have built above the hull, looking down through it at the iron plates beneath your feet. And the plates are painted now, preserved, treated, kept from further decay by a controlled atmosphere. But in the places where the paint has thinned, you can see the original iron, and in the original iron you can see the marks of the riveters, lines of round heads, perfectly spaced, driven by men with hammers in a yard in Bristol in 1843. Each rivet was held in place by a boy called a holder-up, who pressed a metal dolly against the back of the shank while the riveter swung. The boys who did this work were 12, 13, 14 years old. They worked inside the hull in total darkness, except for the glow of the hot rivets being passed to them in iron tongs. They could not hear anything except hammering. They breathed iron dust and coal smoke for 10 hours a day. Their names are not recorded anywhere. The ship they helped build crossed the Atlantic 32 times, carried gold rush emigrants to Australia, survived a grounding on the Irish coast that would have destroyed any wooden vessel, sat in the Falklands for decades, and was brought home to be preserved because someone decided it mattered. Outside the dry dock, the harbour at Bristol is quiet. A gull lands on the bow of the Great Britain and lifts off. The tide is going out, as it always does, pulling the water back toward the Channel and the open Atlantic beyond. Somewhere out there, in the direction the bow is pointing, is New York. 14 days in 1850. 7 hours by air today. One paragraph in a history book for most people. And for others, for the ones who carried their whole lives in one trunk down a dock in Liverpool in the cold. It was simply the moment, everything before it ended, and everything after it began. The iron holds, the rivets hold. The hull that no one believed could float is still here, burned, grounded, abandoned, salvaged, and still pointing west. That is the only kind of story worth crossing an ocean for. What city or journey should we reconstruct next? Leave it in the comments, and we'll go there together. The boys who held the rivets in the dark left no names, only the ship, still floating, still pointing toward the place they were never going.